Welcome to the 28 Storms Tropical Weather Update for this Thursday, July 14th. Still not much going on in the Atlantic Basin today, although we do have a 10% area outlined by the National Hurricane Center. This means there's a 10% chance of development within the next 2 days, and the main culprit is a very weak low located just to the east of Nicaragua, but it will be shredding into land, so we don't really foresee any imminent development. If anything, it has a slightly greater chance of forming once it gets into the far northeast Pacific, although there is some model disagreement as to whether or not it will actually get into the East Pac versus actually going straight into Honduras and Nicaragua. And of course, there's nothing in the Eastern Pacific at this time, but much like the Southwest Caribbean, we will be monitoring the coast very near Central America. The Tropical Analysis and Forecast branch is also keeping a very close watch on the monsoon trough, not only for the slight possibility of tropical development, but simply the high threat of heavy rainfall and isolated flooding. I just took a look at the latest GFS, and it's showing an upwards of over 5 inches of rainfall across much of this region throughout the next 5 to 7 days. And here's the greatest concentration of low pressure, and is expected to ride along this monsoon trough toward the west-northwest over the coming days. Today's satellite imagery shows that much of the Gulf of Mexico and western Atlantic are very quiet. We do have a frontal boundary here, but nothing is organized and upper-level conditions are unfavorable. Still, if anything were to persist down there for a prolonged period of time, sometimes we can get tropical development along the tail end of frontal boundaries. However, none of the models are showing that scenario as of right now. And we also have a tropical wave approaching near 50 degrees west longitude out here in the central Atlantic, but it's currently running into a wall of westerly wind shear, and none of the forecast models show any development. But as always, we will continue to monitor it as it continues to move off in a general west-northwest direction toward Hispaniola over the next 5 to 7 days. But as mentioned, the main threat, or highest concentration of convection, will continue to be near Central America. If we look at the latest visible imagery, once again, we can see that there is a very weak area of cyclonic spin, and this will be moving off toward the west-northwest. The latest GFS was trying to develop this into a weak tropical depression or storm before it moves inland, but it looks like it's going to be moving inland within the next 12 to 24 hours, so that scenario looks fairly unlikely. And also, some of the models have been taking this into the eastern Pacific, although it looks like the trend is a bit more toward the north, so this may be more of a heavy rainfall threat for the land masses more than anything else. If we look at the latest water vapor, we can begin to pick out an area of upper-level ridging here over the extreme southwest Caribbean. That would be favorable for development, but we also have an upper-level low and associated trough over much of the northwest Caribbean, and it is still fairly close, and thus the reason why we're still seeing some southwest wind shear. So overall, I'm not that enthused about the aspects or prospects of tropical development in the Caribbean. Looking elsewhere for just a moment, once again, this is the same tropical wave we discussed in the central Atlantic. It's not showing any signs of development. And also in the eastern Atlantic, we do see a parade of tropical waves continuing to exit the coast of Africa, but none of them are forecast to do much of anything, as upper-level conditions remain just a little bit too unfavorable out there, but that is bound to change as we get closer to August. Also, in the eastern Pacific, we don't see much in the way of organization, even to the south of Mexico, but much like the extreme southwest Caribbean, the far northeast Pacific will be the area to watch over the next 3 to 5 days. We're now looking at the 12Z Canadian, and as you can see, it develops most of the vorticity over land, so that really rules out the possibility of development. And also, it keeps much of the Gulf, Caribbean, and deep tropical Atlantic relatively clear of any tropical activity. It still continues to show the tropical waves marching across the Atlantic, but none of them are showing any signs of tropical organization. Also, toward the end of the period near day 6, we do see a stalled out frontal boundary that's draped across much of the West Atlantic and Gulf Coast. However, it's not showing any development there either. The 12Z GFS is very similar. If anything, it develops the area of low pressure in the extreme southwest Caribbean a bit more. It actually tries to still develop this into a tropical depression or a tropical storm, but based on the latest satellite trends, I just don't see how it would have enough time in the Caribbean to do much without running inland very soon. And it also briefly takes it on into the eastern Pacific. That's still an outside possibility, but once again, the main idea is that Central America will be getting plenty of rainfall, and it keeps much of the remainder of the basin quiet through the 7-day period. The 12Z ECMWF is not enthused at all with anything near Central America in terms of tropical activity. If anything, it's a bit more interested in the stalled frontal boundary that's draped across the West Atlantic and Northern Gulf. This is by day 5. It develops a very weak 1012 millibar surface low between New Orleans, Gulfport, and Mobile. but it's not showing what we would consider to be true tropical development. But if anything, if nothing happens in the Central American region and the rest of the basin stays quiet, then that could possibly be a point of emphasis to at least look at in the forecast models over the coming days, just to see whether or not they actually begin to lock on to something up there. But as of right now, we're not expecting anything across the basin anytime soon. Since nothing is imminent in the tropics, I figured I would go ahead and show the GFS ensemble forecast pattern. And as has been the case for much of this summer, we've seen a dominant area of ridging across much of the south central United States, providing record high temperatures across much of the country. And we've also had a bit of a persistent trough off the east coast of the United States. And this is a daily map, or at least it changes day by day. So now this is by day 5. And we see that the ridging has drifted a bit more toward the east, and this overall trend continues through day 8, day 9, and day 10. So we started off with a ridge more across Oklahoma and Texas, and if you were to believe the GFS ensembles, it's actually beginning to move more toward the east along the east coast of the United States. If this were to verify, it doesn't necessarily mean we'll have any tropical trouble in the Gulf or Caribbean, but overall this would be more of a vulnerable steering pattern for the United States coast in terms of the threat of hurricane landfalls down the road. But once again, this is only one GFS ensemble forecast, and there's really nothing on the charts to be too concerned about at this time. Now, just as a bonus for today's video, I figured I would go ahead and show you Typhoon Mayon located in the western Pacific. The only reason why I'm showing this is because Mayon is expected to threaten the nation of Japan, and surely they don't need to have any other natural disasters, as they're still recovering from the earthquake and tsunami disaster, but it is forecast to impact them in the medium range. As you can see on the latest infrared, it's already developing an eye wall-like feature. It's still a bit ragged toward the north, but continued intensification is forecast throughout the short term and even part of the medium range. This is a quick look at the spaghetti model plots, and as you can see, the overwhelming majority of models do take this toward southern Japan in the coming days. This is the latest forecast from the Joint Typhoon Warning Center. Mayon should peak in intensity to the south of Japan as it begins to bend around the western periphery of a subtropical ridge located just to the east of the nation, but nevertheless it should still more than likely impact southern Japan as a Category 2 or a Category 3 if we compared this to our Saffir-Simpson hurricane scale. So certainly a grim situation, and hopefully Japan can still weather this storm fairly well despite the ongoing problems that that country is currently dealing with. So that's your tropical weather update for this Thursday. Please continue to check back here at 28storms.com throughout the weekend for continued tropical weather updates.